This next session is a problem that every one of you have. Every single rainmaker, every single one of us. Who here has a problem recruiting? Raise your hand. Any other questions? Is that your best? You better be standing. There you go, Amy. Stand on the tables. Look, I've known John for a long time, and John has solved a lot of problems that I've had, trust me. John is with the Talent Genius. Has anybody seen the new, we've been releasing out the new discs out to all the render. You guys got the new disc links now? The new Intermetrics? So this is something we've negotiated actually with John. This is one that John's been using. So we've upgraded our disc links because of John's coaching with our company from the old discs to the new ones. So he's helped us, as a coaching company ourselves. So, this is going to be amazing information. Amazing information. This is a challenge that every single client, every person that I talk to in every single industry has, and that's recruiting. So please get your pens out, get your notebooks out, get your laptops out, get your recorders out. This is going to be something that every single person is going to want to take notes on. I have it up here, John, that every single person is going to want to take notes on, all right? So if you can please, everybody, give a warm welcome to Mr. John Pyke from the Talent Genius.
Thank you, Bubba. It's a pleasure to be here for the second consecutive year. So thank you very much. So quick show of hands. How many of you wish that you could reverse the clock based on your experience as an entrepreneur and as a business owner for all of the hires that you have made in terms of mistakes, in terms of lost, right? The expense, the time, the frustration. Incredible, okay? It's absolutely incredible. So, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about how to eliminate the costly, frustrating guesswork associated with hiring. And the how that we're going to do that is by using science and statistics that works unlike anything else. Okay? Now, we're in day 2, we're in the home stretch. To try to keep the energy up, I'd like to implement something that's called a callback. So when I say got it, I'd like you to say got it, and then I'm going to say good, and that just helps everybody to track. Got it? Got it. Good, that's outstanding. Okay, so one of the things that a recent research study that the Gallup organization did is they found that of all HR functions, recruiting is the single most impactful and important or critical aspect of growing a business. In fact, they said that it contributes up to 3 times in terms of revenue and 2 times in terms of your profit margin. Okay? So, it's absolutely essential. Anthony, this doesn't seem to be queuing. Just hold on for a second. Okay, fabulous. So, again, the Gallup organization, 3 times revenue growth, twice the profit margins, if you can solve this critical challenge of hiring. Let me ask you a question. How many of you would, with tremendous intensity, if you had an 80 to 90% level of confidence that you were hiring the best person every time, what that means is that if you're hiring a new potential agent, they're going to contribute like around $4 million their very first year. Do you think that would make a difference in terms of your level of confidence and how much of a priority you would place on hiring? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so let me just give you one of many examples. Jeff Cook out of Charleston, South Carolina. When I started working with Jeff, he was just doing under 400 sides annually. The year that we worked with him, in 2015, he did 555. Last year, he was up to 772. Right? He's in the top 30 in the nation for the Wall Street Journal Real Trends. This year he's on track. I believe he's going to eclipse 1,200. And on top of that, he's going to be opening up 2 new offices in different markets. He, more than any one of my clients, from day one, has been a steady implementer of what we're doing. And his #1 focus has been on hiring. The biggest reason as to why he's been able to achieve these types of results is because of using the science that we provide to the marketplace. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Now, let me give you one other quick frame of reference. Tom Daves, okay, in California, was one of the best agents for 4 consecutive years, all right, with Keller Williams. But he was a solo agent. He was burnt out, okay? He couldn't continue to work the 60, 80-hour weeks. What he said, he was at a single point of failure. If something happened to him, his business was over. So in order to create leverage, we helped him build a team. In his 2nd full year using our services, we helped him hire over 30 people. He did over 400 units in California and was ranked in the top 250 in 2 years, folks. How many of you would like to see those types of results by eliminating the costly, frustrating guesswork associated with making hiring decisions? By show of hands. Absolutely. Okay. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you a quick video vignette of clients that were at last year's Leadership Boot Camp in Orlando. Just it's about 2.5 minutes. I'd just like for you to hear from them, because much more compelling than what I can say is hearing from your peers.
Work with John Pyke, and he's amazing. He's helped us bring rock stars to our team.
I can't say enough for how much John Pyke has changed my business. I was one of those people that was so anxious to hire people just to get it over with.
He also helps us with writing the ads that bring in the prospects. He's been there to help us when we had a shift in the responsibilities on the team.
Since we hired him, we've basically picked up 5 buyer's agents, high-quality buyer's agents, in fact, and 2 inside sales associates.
I've been working with John Pyke now for over 2 years, and John has really allowed me to grow my team and not make the wrong hire. The difference in the people that are coming onto our team, I can't even begin to describe to you. Our culture has just exploded. We've got the best people we've ever had, and without John Pyke and Talent Genius, that would have never happened.
John has completely revolutionized my way of hiring agents and administrative staff.
Probably our biggest challenge has been the hiring and the growth of our team, and so we're really looking for John to help us and start implementing some systems, start getting great candidates in.
Now we use a very tried and true system for recruiting, for interviewing, and that is all stemmed from John Pyke's process, his understanding of the personality profiles, the DISC profile, and all the things that go along with that.
He's just another member of our C-class corporation members. He's the one that's there for us and advises us on everything involving people.
Never would have thought that I'd be hiring a recruiting coach to take this off our plate, but we really are bad at this, so it became something that we had to do.
Now with the talent he's brought to the table, we're able to interview and train people that want to be successful, and so our retention has been much, much better. We have top agents now that are selling some over 100 houses a year. We actually just started a mortgage company as well, and he's helped us source that immediately. We've got 3 great loan officers on board with that in less than 6 months, and that's huge for us. So thank you, John, for all that you've done for me and my team.
I highly recommend John Pyke.
And I recommend that you talk with him, you hire him.
We've experienced great expansion. We love what John does, and we'd never be without his expertise on our team.
He is incredible.
How many people here are either a current client or have worked with me in the past? Would you please stand? Just give the room an idea of how many people here so that you get a flavor. And also, these are the people that you need to talk to, okay? For those of you that are not working with me currently, all right? Thank you very much. You can sit down. Okay, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about what I do is because there was a 25-year study. There's not many studies at 25 years. 25 research study that Harvard Business Review did. And they were looking to find out what is it that's the most impactful contributors to someone's self-esteem, their self-concept, their sense of self-worth and self-belief. Do you know what they found? They found that the single greatest contributor to a person's self-confidence is their job. Think about it, folks. We give the best waking hours of our day, and beyond that as entrepreneurs, right, to our jobs. So how we feel about ourselves is a direct correlation to how well we do what we do. So I can improve. Like, for example, with Chet Schwenneman. I helped him find a guy who was a pastor of all things. Okay? Moved from being, a souls evangelist to a sales evangelist. In his first year working with Chet, he sold $18.46 million worth of revenue, with a market of approximately an average median household selling price of about $235,000. In his second year, he sold over $25 million. He has one of the best sales profiles I've ever seen out of doing this for 30 years. Everybody got it?
Got it.
See, it's a science, folks. You can predict with laser-like accuracy who's going to perform at a high level. And you're also going to be able to know the people that aren't performing at a high level, why they're not going to be able to perform at a high level, and that's the way they're always going to perform. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Okay. So, it's interesting. I had the opportunity to share the stage with a guy by the name of Graham Hawkins last year in Washington, D.C. at one of the largest CRM conferences. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It's called The Future of the Sales Profession. Tremendous research and data in there having to do with what's going to happen in the future as it relates to sales. Things like specialization is absolutely a huge trend. ISAs, if you don't have some, you need some. All right? Specialization is absolutely critical. One of the things that he was able to uncover, over 20% of the existing business-to-business sales force is going to be let go by the year 2020. What that means to you and I is we have unprecedented opportunity, a massive opportunity right now, because there's more talent on the marketplace basically from now until the year 2020 than there perhaps has been in the last 5 decades. Because of of what technology is doing, because of all the self-service, right? We don't need to have as many salespeople. So there's a lot of great talent out there looking. It's just a matter of having a way to identify them. Everybody got it?
Got it.
You know what I find interesting? Here's some recent statistics. If you go onto Amazon under books, you'll find that there are 1.725 million books as it relates to sales. What do you think it is for hiring, folks? Slightly over 4,000. That's not 10, 20, 50, or even 100 times, right? The sales. It's 380 times more content out there in terms of how to sell. You want to know why? Because teaching sales training is significantly easier than it is to hire somebody. Everybody got it?
Got it.
But I submit to you, even though there's over 4,000 books on hiring, none of them really give you the answer or the solution as to how to consistently hire top performers. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about my background, because context is almost everything. When I was in my late 20s, I interviewed with a company by the name of Learning International. They are the old Xerox Learning Systems company. They are now part, they've gone through several iterations and have been purchased several times, but here's what I want you to understand. This company was trusted by 427 of the Fortune 500. Okay? That's 85% of the Fortune 500. We're relying on them. Why? The least risk vendor, the 800-pound gorilla, the creme de la creme of the industry. And I knew when I was interviewing for this position that if I was to get this job, I could literally write my career. Meaning this, most people that do well at that company are running Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 sales organizations because of the background and the pedigree of working for this type of a distinguished company. But I had something that happened that was a crisis. Even though in my first year I sold more than anyone in the history of the company, what I found out was that the training didn't work. Here I thought, man, I'm the youngest person that ever hired. I've got this roadmap. I can be, an EVP or a CSO of sales at some big Fortune 1000. But what I found out is the training didn't work. Simply put, after the training, the high performers continued to be high performers and the low performers continued to be what? Low performers. There was no direct impact between the training and an increase in sales. So I had a moral crisis. I could no longer work for that company. I couldn't go to a business owner or a CEO and say, if you'll only give me your people, I promise you that I'll deliver an increase in sales. Do you know why 5% of the sales agents always deliver 95% of the total sales revenue in real estate? Because only 5% of those agents have what I call the sales DNA. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, okay? So, the single most common question that I receive from you and your peers are, how does DISC compare to what we utilize? It's a great question. Here's what I want to tell you. See, everything I do is based on science and it's based on research, which means you and I can be supremely confident that this works. This isn't high theory or drift, right? It's not something that's just, hypothetical. So I want to share a research study with you, okay? Based on 100 years of research looking at all different types of personality instruments, DISC, right? Myers-Briggs, and everything else in the market. You know what they found? Using a personality instrument is only slightly more effective for hiring than just looking at someone's resume. Let me say that again. Than just looking at someone's resume, not even meeting them. So I submit to you, if you are using the DISC profile just for hiring, it is a great tool, but it's one-dimensional. It's great for sales training, identifying the different buyer styles. It's great for communication skills. It's great for team building, etc. But it's woefully inadequate. So here it is. Workplace hiring from the last 100 years reveals that personality instruments alone were only slightly more helpful as a predictor of future job performance than looking at just a resume alone. That has the highest correlation between test scores and predicted job performance. We use 3 different instruments, of which DISC is one of them. Bubba mentioned from the stage, he's now using the same DISC that I use. Why? It is the best in the industry, hands down. We are the only source in terms of that profile that looks at all 4 of your responses, not just your most like you and your least like you. It's more accurate. We were the first one to do the drag and drop in terms of the internet. It's easy to do, okay? So now, one of the things I want to mention to just solidify this point and hammer it home. Gary Keller's most recent book, The One Thing, he saves the very best comment for the last chapter, and he says this, that success is an inside job. It's based on things you can't see. It's internal. So he himself goes on record as saying that if you're using the KPA, it's only 20% of your decision because it's one-dimensional. When you use our assessments, it's 3 dimensions, so you get to 80%. What would you rather have? 20% level of accuracy or 80%? It's a no-brainer, right? Got it?
Got it.
Good. Okay. I want to explain this. This will help kind of the penny to drop. Think about an iceberg analogy for a moment. Okay? Where only 12% of the iceberg is visible to the naked eye. So think about this in terms of an interview. The remaining 88% is below the surface. It's hidden. But the 88% of what you must know to make a decision is not available for you to access. Okay? So let's take a look, for example. On the top, you see things that are only personality. How much energy they have, how amiable and personable, those types of things. What you absolutely must know are things like persistence, drive, initiative, handling rejection, self-discipline, problem solving, and perhaps one of the most important of all, the ability to connect and relate quickly and easily and develop an emotional connection. Everybody got it?
Got it.
I'm here to tell you, after training 300,000 people, you can't teach that, folks. Do you know why scripts are, I'm going to say something controversial, but I need to get this off my chest, okay? Do you know why scripts are so popular? Because there are so many horrible people that are in the wrong role. In fact, I heard somebody say this. You know why we use scripts? It's because they think that we can train, even monkeys can do it. True story. I was in Florida giving a presentation similar to this, and I was talking about scripts. A week later, I get this personal handwritten note from this woman. I've been in real estate for 13 years. She said, John, she said, for the first time in 13 years, I have felt comfortable in my own skin going and approaching somebody because she was so used to and stuck on a script that she didn't make it her own. Think about it. How many times you get called at home when you don't want to hear somebody, they're teleprospecting. It's offensive because it's a script and you know what they're trying to do, but they're not putting any of their own personality into it. Now, scripts can be powerful, okay? But I submit to you, if you had salespeople that had the sales DNA, they don't have to rely on scripts nearly as much because it's a natural expression of who they are. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Good. Okay. Right now what I'd like to do is I'd like to transition and I'd like to give you an example, right? I'd like to go over Bubba's DISC profile, his values index, and also his attribute index, or his talents. And we're going to have some fun with this so that you can kind of experience a little bit about how this works, okay? How many of you are familiar with the DISC profile? Okay, most of you. One of the most important things to understand about the DISC is that really it helps to tell us where someone's personality style is dominant. So typically you have 2 scores above 50 and 2 scores that are below 50. The 2 scores that are dominant are the ones that we typically are going to experience the most, the characteristics or styles or traits. So we can see with Bubba, interestingly, he is a pure D and a pure I. It's a classic business owner, entrepreneur, or salesperson. Transaction sales, not consultative. Okay? So you can see based on looking at the screen there that he's a 99 on the D and he's a 99 on the I. And then on the job, which is the gray, he modifies that and brings it down appropriately because 99 is too much power. It's too much force. So Bubba intentionally, because of his knowledge of the DISC profile and that's his comfort zone, he has to bring down his D score significantly when he's talking to his staff or even when he's coaching for that matter. But it is a huge asset. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Good. Super. Moving to his I score, a pure I, very expressive, outgoing, amiable, persuasive, great for leadership, great for sales, all right? And then on the job, again, he needs to lower that as well because he needs to seek input and facilitate and moderate conversations, okay? This helps to know a little bit about your style. So, when I'm consulting, one of the things that I do is I say, okay, well, how do you best communicate with someone in Bubba's style? I can tell you, be good, be quick, and be gone. Yes or yes, Bubba?
Oh God, yes.
Be good, be good means demonstrate your professionalism because high Ds have the least amount of patience or tolerance for incompetence. Yes or yes?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Right, Lonnie?
All right. The other aspect of his so that's the be good. The be quick. Don't tell him how to build the watch. Tell him what time it is. Okay? Attention span, impatience, strategic. All right. We are of the personality temperament. We are already thinking about what we're supposed to do next, and we don't have the time really to appreciate where we are in the here and now. Yes or yes, everybody?
Yes.
So one of the things that we do is that we create a personalized, what I call strength plan. We take 70 pages of data, we boil it or distill it down into a 1-page executive summary so that their leader and the person can meet belly to belly the first week they're hired as part of the onboarding process. And so Bubba knows my style, I'll share my numbers with him, and then I know his, and we know exactly what our behavioral styles are and how to best communicate and interact with each other. So that who are you, do I like you, do I trust you? We accelerate that dramatically, and we develop a connection and a great rapport. Everybody got it?
Got it.
I've done this thousands of times, and I've not had one person ever say they've experienced anything like this in their career. It's powerful. So, as I said before, be direct, succinct, don't ramble, be efficient, and be candid, open, and honest. That's the characteristics from his D and his I score. Okay. So now let's move on to motivators. What is it that fulfills Bubba? What is it that keeps them in the game, that motivates them? Why is it that they do what they do? That's why the second piece of the puzzle is so important because, again, it's below the surface. So let's take a look at Bubba's, for example. So his highest, let's take the third one, is called individualistic. What that means is this. Autonomy and freedom mean everything to Bubba. Being in charge, being able to make decisions. If you had someone like this with a high score, and you basically stood over the shoulder, told him what to do, when to do, and how to do it, he would resign very quickly, and so would anybody else. Yes or yes?
Oh God, yes.
Bubba, just give me a little bit of comment in terms of your high score, in terms of that individualistic, in terms of what that means to you.
Well, that's why I'm a serial entrepreneur. I mean, corporate America didn't work well for me because people have their thumb over my head. I couldn't be creative. I couldn't be self-motivated. I wasn't that corporate structure. And that's why me and my wife have opened so many companies ourselves.
Right.
I mean, me being a buyer's agent would be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm the perfect non-agent.
One of the things that I appreciate about Bubba the most, if we take a look at his second highest motivator, what is he driven by? A genuine desire to help other people. It's a huge asset, okay? This is incredibly powerful for you if you're in a leadership position, if you were in sales. That genuine desire to help somebody cannot help but come through. Versus somebody who has a really low altruistic and they're highly economically motivated. They want to close the deal as quickly as possible, and the other person is kind of not feeling as connected.
It's about the money, it's about the transaction,
So
not about the service.
when we did the meet and greet in the evening on Wednesday night, you see how personable. He pretty much hugged almost everyone, or shook their hand if it was maybe for the very first time that he's meeting you. Okay.
Or hugged you.
Or hugged you, yeah. That's who he is. That's an important part of who he is. So would he be the ideal person to do the charity campaign if you had an employee with a high score like this? Absolutely. Okay. He talked about lending out his trucks to the Boy Scouts. That's just an instinctive part of who he is. Okay. But the thing is, when you're leading people, you have to know this information to keep their level of engagement high. Everybody got it? Got it. Take out the guesswork and the frustration of not knowing who they are, what's important to them, and if they're going to be able to do what you're asking them. I'm going to only cover one more for the sake of time. It's theoretical. Bubba, if he had to work in an assembly line where he was doing the same thing day in, week in, he'd slit his wrists. He couldn't do it. Right? Yes or yes?
Oh God, yes.
Okay? He likes intellectual, right? He's very intellectual curious. Learning is very important to him. So knowing what it is that motivates, drives, and fulfills somebody is incredibly important. Now, when I'm evaluating an existing team, I will ask everyone on the team to take their 2 highest numbers and to score from 1 to 10 how much it's being fulfilled or satisfied right now, today. If it's a low score, I can guarantee you 2 things. Their performance is lower than it should be, and number 2, there's a good chance that they have 1 foot out the door already. So this allows you to know how to create the ideal work environment for each of your people. Powerful. Everybody got it? Got it. Good. Okay. So again, in the personalized 1-page summary, we take 70 pages of data, we boil it down to 1 page so that it's useful, practical, right? So there's a summary of his 3 highest motivators. And we typically would list, the top 3. Now, again, based on research, 1 out of 2 employees, 50% of the people that are turning over today are because they don't have a good relationship and rapport with their immediate manager. In many cases, that's you all.
In most cases, it's you guys.
Okay? Most of you don't have a director of sales coaching or someone like that that's managing the team. Because you have so much on your plate and you're juggling so many things, it's such a time saver to know exactly how to speak into someone's life and what it is that motivates and drives them. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Good. Okay. One more. 36% of people switching jobs left because they're unsatisfied with what? The culture piece, right? But I submit to you, do you know why they're unhappy? Because their leader has no clue what it is that provides fulfillment and motivation and drive to them. That's pretty much the biggest reason as to why. Okay? So, we talk a lot about leadership. This is a leadership boot camp. Let me share the single best definition that I've ever come across as it relates to leadership. I spent 2 years in Greensboro, North Carolina. I actually moved there to learn from one of the co-founders of the Center for Creative Leadership. After I resigned from Learning International, I went there because they really had a lot of the answers as to why people consistently perform at a high level. Okay? The best, here it is. I'd like you to write this down because it's powerful. There's a lot of definitions of leadership out there. This happens to be my favorite. Leadership. Creating conditions that focus and enlist the talents and energies of your people toward the stated goals of your organization. Leadership, creating conditions that focus and enlist the talents and energies of your people towards the stated goals of your organization. What if you could look into the soul of every one of the people that works for you and every potential new hire and know exactly how to communicate with them, know exactly what they're motivated by so that you can create the ideal work environment and you know where their talents reside so that you can put them in that way so that they're in the zone, they're in their element, they're in their sweet spot. Everybody got it? Good. Okay,
ma'am.
yes.
Say it one more time, please.
Leadership, creating conditions that focus and enlist the talent and energy of your people toward the stated goals of your organization. That's really what it is. Okay. So one last thing to emphasize here. Retention is a big theme.
It's huge.
It's huge. We've already seen that the average is you only have 4 to 7 months after they're fully up to productivity. That's not very long. Okay? How you increase the retention is because of what you know about each individual on your team. You're able to create, right, the environment that means the most to them, that speaks to them. Now, I'm talking specifically about sales here. Okay? There are two problems with every company, sales and everything else. Doesn't matter how good your offering is, if you don't have great salespeople, you're sunk. Okay? Leads and recognition. You know why? After having done this with hundreds of thousands of instruments, the single most important characteristic that's linked to high performance in sales consistently is a high economic drive. Show me the money. They have an extra gear, everyone. You've seen it, haven't you? Please show me by show of raised hands. The people that are on your team that are the most economic, they have the high sense of urgency, they're go-getters, and they go out there and they consistently perform at a high level. Let's see it across the audience. You can't measure that in an interview. That's what's so dangerous and misleading about an interview or a DISC profile. Okay, everybody got it?
Got it.
Good, okay. So, the next part of the puzzle that I want to talk about is innate talents or abilities. These are things that you cannot learn, okay? It's something that you were either blessed with at birth or that was developed at a very early age. Now, what we know is that the natural talents or abilities are a result of the actual hardwiring of a person's brain. This is the creme de la creme. This is the secret sauce, this third profile. Because even if someone has the ideal personality style and the ideal motivators, if they don't have the right talent,
It's over.
it's over. You're done. Okay? So, y'all here are in the top 1%. I can tell you emphatically, just based on conversations that I've had, working with quite a few of you, y'all brain is hardwired in a way that you're going to be ultra successful. The challenge is for you to find similar people like you in the roles that you need, whether it's a transaction coordinator, a listing manager, an ISA, etc. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Good. Okay. So let's take a look at Bubba's innate talents. The first thing you have to know about this instrument is that a 6 really is equal to 80%, not a 60 or a D. So a 6 is actually equal to a B. So when you see his empathy score at 7.9, that's actually in approximately the top 9% of anyone that's ever taken this in the world. So, again, to dissect what Bubba is and what he's all about. Personality style, outgoing, persuasive, amiable, friendly. Never met a stranger, can work a room like no one else. Yes or yes? You see it? Okay? Motivation, genuine desire to help other people. It definitely comes across in how he meets and greets people. Third, his ability to connect. The hardwiring of the brain, innately, natural talent, quickly and easily develop an emotional connection with people. Whether it's the janitor or the CEO or anybody in between, he is innately good. That's the secret sauce. That's what CEOs are looking for. What is it that makes my top performer my top performer? They don't know. They can't measure it. Now you can. Now the interesting thing is we talk a lot about shiny objects.
Mm-hmm.
This has been around for 40 years. This is not a shiny object. This is time-tested and proven, folks. Okay? This is something that has been around for a long time. Okay, let's go, for the sake of time, practical thinking. 8.8. So his ability to get results is in the top 1%. If every score on these 70 pages is incredible, but that score is low, it's an immediate showstopper. Why? Because it's somebody whose brain is compromised or deficient in the area of being able to complete a task. They're great at starting, but they're horrible at finishing up. Everybody got it?
Got it.
The same thing with empathy. If your score there is good, I have a friend who's a C-level executive in technology, makes $500,000 a year. He's brilliant. He's a genius when it comes to technology. When it comes to people, he leaves a wake of bodies everywhere he goes. He has no filter. He says what he wants, when he wants, with absolutely not holding anything back. It's incredible. But that's the way you are for life. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Lastly, systems judgment. Problem solving is what that has to do with. How quickly and easily does someone able to connect the dots, come up with a solution or a recommendation? Is that an area of strength for you?
Yes.
So in the case of Bubba, he's really in the top, like 5 to 10% of anybody in the world that's taken this assessment. The vast majority of people are in the top maybe 10% in 2, and they have a deficiency in the 3rd. It's a blind spot. Okay? They're simply not able to do it. That's why most senior executives derail, because they can't see causality. They're not able to connect the dots. If I make a decision over here, what's going to be the spillover effect down here? It's the Peter principle, right? You've all heard of it? That's exactly why. And you can't salvage those people. They simply can't do it. How many people that go on a performance improvement plan do you end up having to fire? 99%. You know why? Because of the hardwiring of the brain. You're asking them to do something they can't do. Okay. So, again, on this one-page, slam sheet, this one executive summary, the strength plan, we list the top talents that he has as well, and we talk about those. Okay? So, that's a very quick. Typically, we spend an hour with each person when we do this, or we do a team call. We spend an hour, and we go over all 3 instruments so that everyone is on the same page at a high level. They know what the information means. Last, there's another page. It's sort of like an expanded view of the previous slide that gives us 78 different attributes. Okay?
A lot.
Around your capability to be able to innately do things very well. Okay? All right. So, one last thing I'd like to mention as it relates to this, because this really is a game changer. Again, remember my background, sales training and development, leadership development, doing a whole host of training. I now am focusing the vast majority of my effort on hiring. Because that's where the biggest need is. If you hire the right person, you don't have to do nearly as much training. Everybody got it?
Got it.
Show of hands, how many has that been your experience? If you hire rock stars, do you have to train them that much?
No.
They figure it out on their own, they get out and go and do it. Okay, so if you have low scores on that profile that I was just saying, it's sort of like you have bunny rabbit ear reception. Okay? Everything's distorted and clouded. You may see the silhouettes behind that distortion, but you don't see it clearly. Because you can't see it clearly, you can't do that certain thing well. Conversely, if you have high scores like Bubba has, okay, then what happens is,
Oh, sorry.
you see it in high definition. Absolutely, high definition. It's crystal clear. The brain sees it clearly. There's a direct correlation to you being able to do that certain thing very, very well, consistently. Everybody got it?
Got it.
I want you to think about how many of you have children, how many of you have kids? Most of you. This explains to the T why your kids struggle in some areas and are brilliant in the other. This also explains why the areas that they struggle will always be an area of struggle, and they'll never be a genius in the area of their struggle, because it's a deficiency in the brain, folks. They don't see something clearly. You know something? I hate math. I despise math. You know why? Because I suck at math. When I was in grad school, quick story, I had a 2-page formula to prove that 0 equals 0. It was one of my exam questions. They offered me a job to be on the faculty if I went to go get my PhD. They were going to pay me $60,000 a year to teach economics. It couldn't have been $6 million. I couldn't do it because I hate it. That's what happens when you go into the workforce. If you're not playing to your strengths, then someone's not going to be engaged. They know they can't do a good job of what they're doing, regardless if you go ahead and send them to training. You know what it does? It negatively reinforces what they know they're not good at. And then you scratch your head and say, okay, here's what you said in the interview, here's what you said you were able to do, but you can't do it. Well, it's because it's a compromised hardwiring of the brain. Okay? All right. The creator of this 3rd and final profile said this: stop trying to put in what God left out, and instead work with what He gave you. Powerful. All right. Incidentally, this man was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, would have won, but he died, and you can't win the award and be deceased. Okay? Right. You cannot win the award and be deceased.
Correct.
So, I did an interview with the vice president of Disney, and I had to share this in the brief time that I have with you. Learn what your talent is and what the talent is of the people that you're potentially looking to bring on board. He says it better than pretty much I've heard anyone. What is ridiculously easy for some is excruciatingly difficult for others. Everybody got it? Okay.
Let me say something real quick.
Yeah.
So, as a lot of examples, we have a lot of clients that use John. And just recently, perfect example, we've got a client that's opening up the mortgage side of it. So John does the mortgage part of it also for the clients. We've had several success. So it's, I mean, literally it's the exact same process on the real estate side as the mortgage side of it. So we were looking at hiring the sales manager before we hired the loan officers. So went ahead, ran the ad, got the applications, and it was a perfect guy that we were looking at hiring. Got the application in, clients called and said, look, this guy's a smoking loan officer. John said he doesn't have the indicators to be the sales manager that we're looking for, but you know, everything else is on par. But we really need to get a sales manager to get this thing going and everything. So, well, you know, let's, you know, go through the interview process, which even though you're using John Pyke, we still follow the same Corcoran process. The coaches still do the interviews. It's still the exact same process. He's just a step before. And we're like 99% on par on everything. So I went ahead and did the interview, and I'm telling you, it was exactly on par. The guy had no leadership skills whatsoever. He was a great loan officer to be able to start in that branch, to be able to get our clients, you know, mortgage company up and going. He did not have the skills to be able to lead. However, he was going to be a great loan officer to be able to take it on. So it took, literally, it focused the initial interview where if I would have had to start from doing the sales manager interview, it would have wasted the first hour of the phone call feeding through all of that. Instead, it was right to the point of starting as the loan officer. It's the exact same thing. I mean, literally, this just happened less than 5 days ago. So, I mean, it's a perfect live example of the value of it. It's the same thing when we're looking for a buyer's agent or a listing partner, or we're looking for a director of first impression. I mean, the scores come back, the indicators come back, and I mean, it is literally Johnny on the spot. It lets us know what the drivers, it lets us know what the indicators are, and it lets us hone in on the pieces so we're not going 36 interviews. You know, I tell everybody, you can carve about 10 to 15% of your P&L off just for loss. Every time we lose some people, it costs us money. You know, everybody says, oh, you know, buyer's agents are free. No, they're not. You know, they're paid on success. Yeah, that's right. But how much money did you spend in lost leads being thrown in the trash because they're not doing it, for lead conversion? How much time are you losing? How much time is it taken away from other agents? How much negativity did it cause? How much sleep did you lose? It costs a lot of money for turnover. So the investment in being able to get it done right in the first place, that's the amazing part of it. So it's an investment, not an expense. I mean, God, as much money as it saved me on doing the right interviews up front is, I mean, it's priceless. So, I mean, that's just a live example of one of hundreds I can tell you about. So, I mean, that's why when we were talking about doing this, instead of doing like a panel about, you know, just throwing my disc up there, I'll be the guinea pig, that's fine. Because most of you know me. So knowing me and then looking at my disc, because you know me personally, that it's so relatable being able to look at my disc and my indicators and having him break it down so you can see what it looks like on paper. You know what I mean? Was that helpful for you guys?
Yes.
Okay? And seeing what you guys can look at when you're hiring somebody, so you can, because you know me and seeing a bar graph and him describe what it is, I would not be a great agent for you. I would be fighting you all day long. You know what I mean? So I'd be a great business partner with you, but I would not be a great agent for you. So, you know, thank you, John, for doing that. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I mean,
my
I
pleasure.
think it was, you know, doing something a little bit different, giving you guys a different value. You guys agree with that?
Yes.
You know, it's a great value for your companies. It's a great investment. When you guys are on that recruiting spurt, I mean, literally, it again is going to help you with that part of it, and it's going to shorten it down. Okay.
Let me mention something. If you would like to receive some really helpful videos, one that I did it's the best one in the last 5 years, hands down, and it was Jeff Cook. Every single one of you needs to see that video. It's 32 minutes long. I will send it to you. I'll send you the link. Just put your business card in the front of the table. You need to see and hear what he has to say. It is powerful, okay? He has stayed the course and his business has just exploded because of his emphasis and his priority on hiring. So do we have some time for some questions?
Yes, we have 5 minutes for a table discussion and question and answer. So that's the time limit that we have right now. Does anybody have any quick questions that you want to ask?
How do you screen for work ethic?
We only are able to do that by using these assessments. Otherwise, we would be absolutely clueless.
And accountability?
Accountability, that's a great question. So the assessment, the third assessment, will tell us level of pride in workmanship, their level of persistence, how easy it is for them to just, crater and not get back up again. So it's massively important. So that's a great, huge indicator for success. The second one, there are two pieces of accountability on the instrument. The one that Bubba was just talking about, so this guy was a rock star, hands down. But if you put him in management, it would be a colossal disaster because his accountability for others score was really low. What that means is this. He wants to be an individual contributor only. He does not want to be held accountable for the production and the performance of other people, of which he has no control. It is totally outside of his realm of the possible or what he wants to do. Even if someone says that they want to do it, they can't. Does that help?
So the one that we provide to you guys only is the DISC Plus. So it has the first and the second indicators on it. We do not provide you guys with the second and the third and the fourth one. That is one that you would have to go directly into John's program for. So we give the first, we give the full the first one, and then the second one, the DISC Plus, that has the indicator values, that has the individualistic, the altruistic, that kind of stuff. After that, it goes directly into John's program.
Diane?
Okay?
I was just going to say, I came to Orlando last year and met John and called when I found out he was in Greensboro. I'm in North Carolina. So I called him up and went and met, and so I've been working with him for about a year now, and he's sent in lots of good candidates. But what's interestingly enough is of some of the ones that I hired who didn't make it, I went back and read what he said from that brief synopsis, and it's just eerie how accurate that can be. It wasn't necessarily that I didn't listen to what he said, but he says, look for this. I'm still not a human resources person, so I sometimes see what I want to see, but it's amazing how accurate you can be. The other point is, anytime if I've got a candidate who contacts me directly, I have them go to the website and go through John.
Yeah.
If they're coming the next day, I email John and say, hey, when this comes through, can you look for it and send me right away? No matter when it is, and I figure a lot of times you are probably off like this, but he is extremely responsive in getting back to you and making that happen. So thank you for that.
Forget about the Net Promoter Score. Forget about the Net Promoter Score. Today, more than ever, it's all about speed and responsiveness. A great candidate typically is only going to stay on the market for maybe 10 days. That's why my newest book, why Indie Publishing, that's coming out next quarter, I hope, Hire Fast, Fire Fast. Hire fast. You get somebody and you see all these optics, you're 90% guaranteed that they're going to be a consistent high performer. Bring them in and make them the job offer and get them started. Do not drag your feet. And then when you onboard, this is typically how it sounds. Bubba, you can't imagine how thrilled we are to have you as a part of our team. You know that we had 300 applicants for the position, the very position, and we selected you. And here's specifically why. Because you're a high D, you have a high sense of urgency, you're competitive, aggressive, you're very personable, amiable, and outgoing, right? You have a genuine desire to help other people, right? His other one is you work in a self-directed manner, which is that autonomy and freedom piece. He doesn't want a whole lot of hand-holding. You are going to be the leader that's going to crush it for us. Then when we get to your talents, you innately connect with people quickly and easily. We don't have to teach you that. You've already got it. Your results are in the top 1%, and your problem solving is in the top 5%. It's not a matter of if you're going to be successful here, Bubba. It's a matter of how successful you can be with our support. Again, do you see the difference, folks? When you bring somebody in on those types of conditions, you're basically saying, we believe in you. We know what you're capable of. It's a total game changer.
Complete.
Hey,
Barry,
John,
last one?
what we've noticed lately, well not lately, probably the last year, that we're getting a lot of folks that when you just look at the disc, it's very close. There's not a big separation in any of the scores on the DISC. And then sometimes maybe the eye is a little higher. Do you look at, like, for a buyer agent, you know, do you look at like, okay, you gotta at least have an eye that's above 60 or anything like that? And then what does it mean when all their scores are within probably 20 to 30?
Great question. So most of the time what that means is that the person is trying to be all things to all people and basically rig their results.
Bipolar.
Okay? All right. Your second question. An eye is very important. Okay? There's no question about that. Here's the thing that I know after having done hundreds of thousands of these. The more you compromise on any of these profiles, the more you compromise their productivity and performance, because they don't... See, it takes too much effort for them to be the extrovert and energy because they're trying to be somebody that they're not. Okay? So that's a great question. Now, if they're a listing agent, it's much better if they're a lower on the I. It's much more acceptable, or maybe they can get away with it more because the D is more important with the listing agent. It's to throw the hunt, the transaction, get the job, get the listing, and go on to the next one. Okay? Awesome.
Okay. So, I turned myself off.
So let me just mention this in closing. Bob, I really want to thank you. There's been a lot of dynamics that you could have bailed on this and rescheduled for next year, and I love the partnership that we have. It's a fantastic partnership. It's hand in glove. We do the screening on the front end.
Yep.
They take you through all the onboarding and the interviewing on the back end. So let's give it up for Bubba for actually staying through this.
Appreciate that, Mike.
My pleasure.
All right. So do a